Hi, I'm Zane. Welcome back to Passionate Beauty Tales. I'm so glad you're here. Where are you listening from today? Quote, "The night my boss asked me to pretend to be his wife for Christmas, I was the only person left in the office. The whole floor felt empty, like a ship left alone in the snow. Outside the big windows, New York was quiet under a thin layer of white. Inside, only the hum of the servers and the sound of my keyboard kept me company. I was finishing one last report, trying not to think about Christmas Eve or how alone I really was. I am Maya Miller, Administrative Assistant to Finian Vale, CEO of Vale Holdings. For 2 years, I had lived on the edge of his world, organizing his calendar, smoothing his calls, fixing problems before they reached his desk. I was useful, invisible, and safe. That was how I liked it. So when the air around me shifted, I felt it before I saw him. I did not hear his steps on the carpet, but his presence was heavy, like the room had become colder in a second. The fine hairs on my arms stood up. I knew he was there, even before I looked up from my screen. He stopped right in front of my desk and said nothing. I tried to focus on the report, but the silence grew thick and sharp. Finally, I forced myself to lift my head. Finian Vale looked like he always did at first glance. Dark suit, perfect tie, shoulders straight, face calm and controlled. But something was wrong. The strong line of his jaw was tense. His eyes, usually cool and distant, looked tight and tired, like he had not slept in days. He looked like a man trying very hard not to fall apart. "I need a favor," he said. His voice was not its usual smooth, firm tone. It was low and rough, like the words were hard to say. A favor I have no right to ask. My fingers stilled on the keyboard. In 2 years, he had never asked me for anything personal. Everything was business. Clean. Professional. Lines always clear. "Of course, Mr. Vale," I answered, because that is what I always said. My voice sounded too loud in the empty office. "What do you need?" He met my eyes, and the look there hit me like a punch. There was desperation in it. Real, naked human desperation. "I need you to pretend to be my wife," he said. "Tomorrow." For a second, I truly thought I misheard him. My mind rushed through possible meanings, jokes, tests, anything that would make more sense than what he had just said. "I am sorry," I said slowly. "I do not understand." He took a deep, uneven breath. It was the first time I had ever seen his control slip. "My family," he said, and the words sounded heavy. "Christmas with them is not a holiday. It is an inspection. Every year they go over my life, my choices, my company, my future. They want me married, settled, neat. They want a picture to prove their perfect family story." His hand moved toward the window, toward the sleeping city and the world he ruled from this tower. "I need to walk into that house tomorrow with a partner, a wife, someone by my side they cannot push past." Then he looked at me again. "I chose you because you are discreet and professional. You do not treat me like a prize. You treat me like a job." The words burned. I knew he meant it as a compliment, but it still stung. I was, in his mind, safe to use. "You want me to be a prop for your family," I said before I could stop myself. My cheeks grew hot. "I am sorry, Mr. Vale. I cannot do that." I stood up and grabbed my coat. Running was my first instinct in life. When things turned strange, I left before I was the one left behind. I turned to walk away. $200,000, Maya. His voice stopped me cold. I froze with my back to him. "I will wire $200,000 to your account," he said, every word heavy and clear. "For 4 days of your time. From tomorrow morning until the morning after Boxing Day." My heart slammed against my ribs. 200,000. Not a random number, the exact amount of the reverse mortgage on my aunt's small, old house. The house that had been the only real home I ever had. The house the bank was ready to take away. The house my aunt pretended she was not scared to lose. That number had chased me in every shift, every late night, every quiet prayer. Slowly, I turned back to him. His eyes still held that storm, but now I could see the man drowning in it. He was not only a rich CEO trying to buy an actress. He was a desperate son who could not face his family alone. "I accept," I whispered. The words tasted strange in my mouth, like I had just signed something with my soul. Relief washed over his face, softening his features in a way I had never seen. It was gone in a second, replaced by a hard, serious look. "Good," he said. His voice slipped back into command. "But there is a condition, one rule, it cannot be broken." A chill ran down my spine. He turned and walked toward his office. I followed, the 10 yards between my desk and his door feeling longer than any road I had ever walked. His office was all glass and steel high above the city. Clean lines. Cold colors. It felt less like a place of work and more like a court where only he passed judgment. On his desk, a thin tablet glowed with a contract. He stayed on the other side of the desk, like the wood between us was a wall he needed. "The rule is simple," Finian said. His voice was cool again, back in business mode. "This is a performance, a contract. Under no circumstances are we to develop real romantic feelings for each other." My stomach dropped. "If either of us starts to feel any true attachment," he went on, "we must confess it at once. When that happens, the agreement ends. Immediately." He watched my face, sharp and careful, like he was checking for danger. "There is a second part," he added. "To avoid future issues, your position will be moved. We have arranged a similar role for you at our Seattle headquarters. It is a promotion on paper, a clean break." A clean break. He was planning my exit before the act even began. For a girl who had moved from place to place since childhood, those words were an old wound. Temporary, replaceable, easy to move. But $200,000 was real. It was a roof over my aunt's head. It was safety. "I understand," I said. My voice was calm, but my hand shook as I picked up the tablet. I read the terms, though I already knew I would sign no matter what they said. Then I pressed my name on the line. Accepted. "One last thing," he said, his voice softer now. He came around the desk and stood close enough that I could smell his cologne, clean and warm. He reached into his pocket and took out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring. Simple gold band, one clear stone. Not huge, not flashy, but somehow it looked older than the office around us, like it carried a story. "We were married a month ago," he said quietly, as if rehearsing a script. "Secret ceremony. It was sudden. We were in love, and did not want my family to interfere." He took my left hand. His fingers were cool and steady as he slid the ring onto my finger. The metal felt cold, then suddenly very warm, like it sank straight into my chest. It sat there at the base of my finger, light and heavy at the same time, a symbol of a lie that already felt too real. "Welcome to the Vale family, Mrs. Vale," he said. His tone was formal, but when our eyes met, I saw something flicker there. A quick, fragile emotion I could not name, gone in an instant. The drive to the Vale estate was quiet and tense. He drove with sharp focus, his jaw tight. The city lights passed by like streaks of color, but I barely saw them. My thumb kept brushing over the ring as if checking it was still there. When we turned through the iron gates, the world changed. The driveway wound through tall trees dusted with snow until the house appeared. It was not really a house. It was a stone fortress, covered in perfect white lights. Beautiful, cold, a palace made to impress, not to comfort. "Just follow my lead," Finian said as he parked. "Do not let them see you are nervous. They like weakness." Before I could answer, the heavy front door swung open. A tall woman stood in the warm glow, straight as a ruler. Hair neat, dress perfect, smile sharp. "Finian," she said. Her voice was smooth and cool. "You are late." Her eyes moved to me, scanning me from head to toe in a second. "And this must be the surprise." "Mother, this is Maya," he said. His hand slid to the small of my back, firm and clear. "My wife." Quote. If Eleanor Vale was shocked, she did not show it, except for a tiny change in her smile. "Wife?" she repeated. "How unexpected." The next hour was a blur of names and sharp smiles. His father, distant and polite. His brother, bored and cold. His sister, Clara, with eyes that watched me like I was a puzzle she wanted to break. At dinner, the table was long, the silver bright, the room full of small, cutting words almost hidden under polite talk. It felt like sitting in the middle of a quiet war. Clara struck first. "It is funny," she said with a sweet face that did not reach her eyes. "Fine never mentioned you, not once. For a man who is madly in love, he was very quiet. Where did you meet?" The whole table went silent. Every eye turned to me. We had not planned this detail. My mouth went dry. Heat rushed to my face. I opened my lips, not even sure what lie would come out. Under the table, his hand found mine and squeezed, steady and strong. "I have this," that squeeze said. "We met in a place where people are honest, and the coffee is cheap," he said, calm and clear. He looked straight at his sister. "A place you would never be caught in, Clara." A few people sucked in a breath. Clara's smile slipped for 1 second. Finian turned to look at me then, and for a moment the look we shared felt like something real. A small, secret win, shared between two people on the same side. After dinner, his mother led us up the grand stairs and down a hall full of old family portraits. She stopped at a pair of double doors. "As newlyweds," she said with that thin smile, "I put you in the master guest suite. I am sure you will be very comfortable." Every word carried a test. The room was beautiful. Big bed, warm fire, balcony with a view over the snow. It should have felt romantic. It felt like a cage. As soon as the door closed behind us, the air changed. The easy team feeling from dinner disappeared. We stood far apart, two strangers who were now supposed to share a bed. "I will take the sofa," he said quickly. His voice was flat again. He did not look at me as he took off his jacket and set it aside. We moved around each other in a careful dance, never touching, hardly speaking. I changed in the huge bathroom and slipped into the oversized bed. He lay on the long velvet sofa near the fire. The room was quiet, but my mind was not. The sheets felt cold. I listened to his slow breathing in the dark, far but not far enough. I must have fallen asleep at some point, because the next sound tore me out of a dream, a low, broken sound. I sat up, heart racing. It came again, a choked cry from the sofa. I got out of bed and crossed the room on cold feet. In the faint light from the balcony doors, I saw him twisted in the blanket, his face tight with pain. "No," he muttered. His voice was rough and full of fear. "Please do not go." The powerful CEO was gone. This was someone else, a man trapped in a nightmare. Something inside me moved before my brain could catch up. I knelt by the sofa and put my hand on his shoulder. "Fine," I whispered. "Fine. Wake up. It is okay. You are dreaming." He jerked awake with a sharp gasp, eyes wide and wild. For a second, he did not seem to see me at all. Then his focus returned, landing on my face, on my hand on his shoulder. And in that dim light, with his armor gone, I saw the truth. My boss was not just cold and untouchable. He was haunted. And for the first time, I was not sure my heart was safe at all. In the morning, nothing was said about the nightmare. He was already up when I woke, standing by the window in a fresh shirt, tie perfectly straight, like the man on the sofa last night had been just a trick of the dark. But something had changed. The air between us felt softer, fragile, like a thin glass bridge we were both afraid to step on. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Morning," I answered, my voice rough from sleep. For a moment, we just looked at each other. I wanted to ask who he had been begging not to go. I wanted to ask who had walked away from him in the past. But the contract rules sat between us like a warning sign. Feelings were not allowed here. Downstairs, Christmas morning at the Vale estate looked perfect and felt empty. We gathered in the grand drawing room, the whole family lined up on silk sofas while a member of the staff handed out huge, beautifully wrapped gifts one by one. The tree was tall and flawless. The ribbons matched the ornaments. It was a magazine cover version of Christmas. It did not feel like Christmas. A staff member stopped in front of me and handed me a box. My chest tightened. I had nothing for Finian. The past 24 hours had been a blur of travel, lies, and nerves. I had not even thought about a gift. "I did not get you anything," I whispered to him as he sat beside me, my voice low so only he could hear. He gave a small, almost amused breath. "It is fine," he murmured back. "I did not get you anything either. We are newlyweds. Our presence is the present." His answer to the room was smooth and charming, but the quick glance he gave me was private, reassuring. It made some of the tightness in my chest ease. The gift I opened was expensive jewelry from his parents. It sparkled. It was impersonal. I smiled and said thank you. That was what people did in this house. They traded things, not feelings. After the ceremony ended, everyone drifted away. His father to his study, Clara to gossip on the phone, his mother to supervise staff like a general with her army. I felt like a guest actor who had wandered off stage, forgotten and free for a moment. I found the library by accident. It was 2 floors of high shelves and rolling ladders, thick rugs and soft chairs. It smelled like old pages and wood and quiet. For the first time since I arrived, I felt my shoulders relax. I was running my fingers over the spine of a worn book when I sensed him at the doorway. "I thought you might come here," he said. I turned. He stood there in the archway, hands in his pockets, watching me like he was not sure if he was welcome. "This room feels different," I said, "like it belongs to someone real." For a second, a shadow of a smile touched his mouth. "It was my grandfather's," he said. "He actually read the books. My parents just collect them." He walked toward me with his hands behind his back. When he stopped in front of me, he brought them forward. In them was a small, clumsily wrapped package. The paper was creased and crooked. "I lied earlier," he said softly. I frowned. "About what?" "I did get you something." My heart skipped. I took the package carefully, our fingers brushed. The touch was small and simple, but it sent a small shock up my arm. Inside the wrapping was a book, a small, old hardcover copy of The Little Prince. The cover was faded, the corners worn. I knew it at once. It was the book I had told him about weeks ago in the office, during a charity drive for kids' books. I had said it was the one book from my chaotic childhood that I always tried to find again. "How did you even remember this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me like the answer was obvious. "I listen when you talk, Maya," he said quietly. The simple sentence hit harder than any expensive gift. In a world where I had always felt like background noise, someone had listened, really listened. My eyes stung. I blinked fast. "I do not have anything for you," I said, "not like this." "But I did have something." "Wait," I said. "Do not move." I ran back to our room and opened my bag. Inside, folded between my clothes, was a single sheet of paper, the sketch I had drawn late last night when I could not sleep. A simple charcoal drawing of the view from our balcony, the lone oak tree in the snow, the empty yard, the soft, gray sky. It had been my way of stealing one real moment for myself. I went back to the library and held it out to him, suddenly shy. "This is all I have," I said, "but it is yours if you want it." He took the paper like it was made of glass. His eyes dropped to the drawing. For a long moment he just stared. His thumb moved gently over the lines, careful not to smudge them. When he finally looked up, the cool business mask was gone. His gaze was full of something raw and open that made my breath catch. "In a house full of things," he said slowly, "this is the first gift that feels real." Warmth rushed through my chest. We stood there in the quiet library, holding a book and a sketch, and something shifted between us. It felt like a thread tying us together, thin but strong. Later that day, the walls started closing in again. The snow outside had grown thicker, turning the world white and still. Inside, the air felt heavy with old tension. His parents were in their rooms. His brother had left. Clara was somewhere, but her absence was almost worse. It felt like she was plotting a new attack. I was standing near a window when he appeared beside me. "I need some air," he said. "Walk with me." It sounded more like a plea than a command. We pulled on coats and stepped outside into the hushed world. The cold air bit my cheeks, but it felt clean, free. Our feet crunched on the snow as we walked with no clear path, just moving away from the house and its watching windows. "I used to love this place," he said quietly after a while, looking up at the trees, "before it became the stage for the same fight every year." He talked then, not like a CEO giving a speech, but like a man just letting words fall. About the pressure of the family name, about expectations, about how every choice he made, from who he dated to how he ran the company, was measured against what the veil image required. He did not sound self-pitying, just tired. Deeply, bone-tired. Maybe it was that honesty that opened me up too. I told him about my childhood, how I moved from house to house, school to school. How my aunt's small, worn home had been the first place that felt like a real shelter. How the fear of losing it had kept me awake so many nights my eyes still carried the shadows. We were just two people in the snow, trading quiet truths. I was watching a bright red cardinal on a snowy branch when my foot slid. There was a hidden root under the fresh powder. My ankle twisted hard. Pain shot up my leg, sharp and hot. I cried out and lost my balance. In the space of a heartbeat, his arm was around my waist. He caught me before I hit the ground, pulling me tight against his chest. The world tilted, white and spinning, then steadied as he held me. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice was tight with concern. "I think I twisted it," I said through clenched teeth as I tried to put weight on my foot. Pain flared bright and strong. "Okay, that hurts." He knelt down in the snow, his hand gentle but firm on my leg as he checked my ankle. "It is swelling," he said. His tone changed, calm and sure, like he had done this before. "Do not move." Before I could argue, he stood, bent down, and lifted me into his arms. The world left my feet. I grabbed his shoulders on instinct, my heart pounding. He cradled me like I weighed nothing, one arm under my knees, the other around my back. His chest was solid and warm against me. I could hear the steady beat of his heart under my ear. "Finian, you do not have to carry me," I protested weakly. "I am not leaving you out here," he said, "so yes, I do." There was no distance in his voice now, no cool edges, only firm care. The walk back felt longer. Snowflakes dusted his dark hair. His breath came out in small clouds. I was painfully aware of every small movement, every shift of his arms around me. I could smell his cologne mixed with cold air and pine. Inside our suite, he set me down carefully on the sofa. "Stay," he said quietly, like he was talking to someone precious. He knelt again, this time on the thick rug, and took my foot in his hands. He unzipped my boot and slid it off with slow care. The skin around my ankle was already swollen. He touched me with the same hands that signed million-dollar deals. Now they were gentle and steady, wrapping my ankle with an elastic bandage he found in a small house first aid kit. "Does that hurt?" he asked, watching my face. "Little," I said, "but your hands are warm, so that helps." The corner of his mouth twitched, like he was fighting a smile. He focused on the bandage again, finishing the wrap with neat, firm tucks. He was close. So close. His head bowed, his dark hair falling forward, his shoulders broad under his shirt. I watched his hands move and felt something in my chest pull tight. This was not for show. There was no audience, no family, no contract, no one to fool. This was just him, caring for me. When he finished, he looked up. We were eye level, our faces only a breath apart. For a second, neither of us moved. The fire crackled. Snow fell silently outside. The rule we had signed sat somewhere far away. "Thank you," I said softly. He held my gaze, and his eyes were full of things we were not allowed to say. "You are welcome, Maya," he answered, just as quiet. In that moment, I knew with a cold, deep certainty that we were both standing on the edge of something dangerous and beautiful. And we were already starting to fall. The house turned into a different world that night. The annual Vale Christmas party was not just a family thing, it was an event. Cars pulled up in a long line outside. Warm light spilled from the windows. Music and laughter floated through the halls. The ballroom shone with crystal, gold, and glitter. Every powerful person in their circle seemed to be there. I sat in a small alcove off the main room, my wrapped ankle resting on a velvet stool. Finian had insisted. "You are not walking all over this place," he said. "I can be a control freak about one thing that actually matters." Quote, I could see the party through the archway. People moved like they were on a stage, their smiles bright and their eyes cold. I felt like an exhibit, the new Mrs. Vale on display. Finian stayed close to me all evening. He brought me a drink, then another. He introduced me to people with his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. He laughed at my quiet comments about some of the guests. His performance as a devoted husband was flawless. And that was the problem. It did not feel like a performance anymore. The way he looked at me when he said, "My wife," felt too real. The way he bent down to check my ankle every so often, the way his thumb brushed my knee in a small circle of comfort, none of that felt fake at all. We were sharing a soft moment, smiling over some private joke about a man whose suit looked like gift wrap when Clara appeared. She moved in like a shark, slow and certain. In her hand she held a sprig of green with little white berries. "Mistletoe." "Well, this is sweet," she sang, holding the mistletoe over our heads. "Look where you decided to sit." You know the rule. You cannot break tradition. People nearby turned. A hush fell over the space around us. Eyes watched with hungry interest. It was a trap, and everyone knew it. Finian went still beside me. His hand tightened on my shoulder. His jaw clenched. He looked from Clara's smug face to the circle of guests. Then his eyes found mine. The charming mask dropped. All I saw was one silent question. "What do we do?" My heart raced. I could shake my head and laugh it off. We could pretend it was silly, turn it into a joke, and survive the gossip later. That would be the safe choice. But I thought of the ring on my finger. I thought of his nightmare. I thought of him walking through the snow, carrying me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. For once, I did not choose safe. I gave him the smallest nod. "It is okay." He turned fully toward me. The party faded into a blur around us. The music, the voices, the lights, all of it became background noise. His hand slid from my shoulder to my cheek, his thumb brushing my skin with soft, trembling care. He leaned in. The first touch of his lips was light. Just enough to prove a point, just enough for the crowd. A neat, careful performance. Then something broke. The kiss deepened. His hand cupped my face more firmly. My fingers curled into his shirt. The room vanished. There were no guests, no family, no contract, no money, no rule. It was just him and me. Every stolen glance, every quiet talk, every soft moment from the past 2 days poured into that kiss. It was not careful. It was full. It was real. When he pulled back, we were both breathless. My lips tingled. His eyes were wide, shocked, almost afraid. I knew my expression matched his. The party around us erupted into soft claps and pleased sounds. Clara stepped back with a tight smile that looked more like defeat. But none of that mattered. Because we both knew what we had just done. We had broken the only rule. Finian stood up at once. He took my hand gently and helped me to my feet. "Excuse us," he said to no one and everyone, his voice calm. He led me out of the ballroom, down a quiet hallway, into the library. He closed the heavy door behind us, and the sound felt final. The room was lit only by the fire. Shadows moved on the walls. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. He walked to the fireplace and braced his hands on the mantel, his back to me. His shoulders looked tight, like he was holding up the whole house. "That should not have happened," he said. His voice was low and rough. I stood by the door, fingers still touching my lips. The ghost of the kiss was warm there. "We broke the rule," I whispered. The words filled the room like a sentence. He turned slowly. The look on his face hurt to see. Pain, regret, want, all tangled together. "The contract is clear," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "We have to end this, now." Saying it felt like tearing something out of my chest. He took a step toward me. His hands were fists at his sides, like he did not trust them. "I do not want to," he said. The words sounded like they were dragged out of him. "I do not want this to end, Maya." My eyes burned. "I do not either," I said. It felt like jumping off a cliff. We stood there, the space between us small and huge at the same time. The contract that started everything now demanded it be destroyed. "We have one more day," he said finally, his voice softer. "Tomorrow. Boxing Day. The agreement is not officially done until the morning after." He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of him. "Let us pretend for one more day," he said, his eyes searching mine. "Not for my family. For us. Let us act like this is real, just until we have to walk away." It was a foolish idea, a slow way to break our own hearts all the way. But when I looked at him, I knew I would say yes, even if it killed me. "One more day," I whispered. The next morning, I could feel the difference. We did not talk about the kiss again. We did not say the words, "We have feelings." We did not need to. It was in every small thing. The way he reached for my hand without thinking as we walked down the stairs. The way I leaned into his side when his father spoke to me with real interest for the first time. The way his thumb drew small circles on my back as I laughed at some story. We were still acting like a couple, only now the act was true. His father asked me about art. He listened as I talked about sketches and light and shadows. Clara watched us with narrowed eyes, but she stayed quiet. The real surprise came from his mother. I was looking at family photos on the grand piano when I felt her beside me. Eleanor Vale, the woman who had made the house feel like a test the moment I arrived. "He is different with you," she said. I turned, ready for another cold comment. But her face was softer. The smile on her lips looked almost real. "It is good to see," she added simply. Then she walked away, leaving me with a strange warm ache in my chest. In the afternoon, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I slipped away to a quiet stone terrace and answered. It was my aunt. Her voice shook with happy tears. She told me the bank had called. The wire transfer had cleared. The payment went through. Her house was safe. The mortgage was gone. "You did it, Maya," she said, crying and laughing at the same time. "You saved our home." It is a Christmas miracle. I leaned against the cold railing and stared out at the snow. It should have been pure relief. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like a door closing. The reason for this contract, this fake marriage, this whole strange weekend, had been money. Now the money had done its job. The contract had served its purpose. There was nothing left holding us together. I found him in the library again, standing by the fire. When he saw my face, his smile faded. "What is it?" he asked at once. "The money went through," I said. My voice sounded far away, even to me. "My aunt's house is safe." I watched the words hit him. For a second, I saw real joy for me in his eyes, and it broke my heart even more. "I am happy for you," he said softly, and he meant it. But the pain in his face was clear. We both knew what it meant. The lie was over. The morning after Boxing Day, we left. His family said goodbye at the big front door. His mother hugged me and told me to call. His father shook my hand with respect. We smiled. We played our last scene as the perfect couple. Once the car door closed, the performance ended. The silence between us was heavy and cold. He drove in silence for miles. City shapes slowly started to appear on the horizon. Each mile felt like a countdown. Halfway back, he pulled the car off the road at a quiet lookout over a frozen lake. He turned off the engine. The sudden quiet made my ears ring. He did not look at me at first. "The contract," he said finally, staring straight ahead. "We do not have to follow it to the letter." He turned then, and the raw hope in his eyes almost knocked the breath from my lungs. "The transfer clause," he said, We can ignore it. You do not have to go to Seattle. Stay, please." The word please from him was a knife. Part of me wanted to say yes before he even finished. To stay, to fight, to figure it out later. But another part, the part that had learned the hard way to protect what was left of me, saw the trap. "And then what?" I asked quietly. "I go back to being your assistant? We pass each other in the hall and pretend none of this happened? I sit outside your office knowing we broke the one rule you built your whole life on?" I swallowed hard. "That would not be mercy," I said. "That would be torture." Tears burned my eyes. I forced myself to look at him. "It is better this way," I said, repeating his own words from the contract. "A clean break." He closed his eyes like the words hurt. Because they did. For both of us. He turned the key and started the car again. We drove the rest of the way back in silence, leaving the frozen lake and our last weak chance behind us. My last day at the office did not feel real. People smiled and hugged me. They told me they were proud of my promotion to Seattle. They said they would miss me. I smiled and thanked them. I packed my desk into a box. I did not look at his office, but I felt him there, like a son I was trying not to stare at. At 5 o'clock, my phone rang. His private line. "Maya," he said, his voice formal. "Please come in for your final transfer meeting." I walked into his office for the last time. He stood with his back to me, looking out at the city. "The board approved the transfer," he said to the glass. "Your flight is at 7 tomorrow. A car will pick you up at 4. He listed travel details like he was reading any normal report. Then he added, "Thank you for your assistance this weekend." It was successful. Something inside me snapped. I walked to his desk and slowly slid the ring off my finger. The skin underneath was pale and marked. I set the ring in the center of his empty desk. It looked small and sad on the cold wood. He turned then, finally. His eyes went to the ring, then to me. "I do not want it," he said. His voice was rough. "Keep it." A sad, tired smile tugged at my lips. "Thank you, Finian," I said softly, but it was never really mine. For one long, final moment, we just looked at each other. I tried to memorize his face, the man I loved and was walking away from. Then I turned and left, my box under my arm, my heart breaking with every step. I did not look back. Seattle felt like it had been painted in only one color. Gray sky. Gray water. Gray glass buildings. Even the streets seemed to hold that same washed-out tone. People moved fast with their heads down, hiding under umbrellas. The days slid past, one after another, and I moved through them like a shadow. My new job was fine. The people were kind. The office was modern. The view was nice. The title was better. The pay was great. On paper, I had won. But every night I went home to a quiet apartment that did not know my name, and every night I put my keys down on a table that felt like it belonged to someone else. I made dinner for one. I washed one cup. I crawled into a bed that felt too big. On my nightstand sat the small, worn copy of The Little Prince. Sometimes I would touch the cover with my fingertips and feel my throat close up. It was the only thing in that whole apartment that felt real, because it came from him. I kept telling myself I should be happy. My aunt called almost every day. She sounded lighter, younger, like the weight of the house had been pressing on her lungs for years, and now she could finally breathe. She told me about the curtains she wanted to buy, the plants she wanted to put on the porch. "You saved us, Maya," she said. "You gave us a home for life." I smiled and said I was glad. And I was, but there was a hollow space inside me that nothing filled. I missed him, every second. I missed the way his voice changed when he was tired. I missed the soft look he got when he forgot to be the CEO. I missed the feeling that, for once in my life, I was not temporary. In New York, he was breaking too. I did not know it then, but later he told me. He told me how the penthouse felt too big and too empty, how he kept expecting to hear my soft knock on his office door, and how the silence, when it never came, felt like a punch. How he would walk past my old desk and catch himself almost saying my name, then stop and swallow the words. He had done it. He had followed every rule. He had honored the contract and cut the tie. His family was satisfied. His life was neat and clear. He had peace, only it was the wrong kind. It was the kind that did not let him sleep. One night, alone in the family library, he found my sketch. The simple charcoal drawing of the lone oak tree in the snow, tucked between two books where he had hidden it. He said that when he pulled it out and really looked at it, something inside him broke. That small piece of paper felt more real than anything in his perfectly ordered life. That was the moment he stopped listening to his own rules. He told me he called his new assistant after midnight and told her to clear his calendar. Every meeting, every call, every deal. Then he opened his desk drawer, took out the ring, closed his hand around it, and booked the first flight to Seattle. I knew none of that when I stepped out of my new office building into the cold Seattle rain 1 week after I left New York. I just knew I was tired. The workday was over. People poured out of the glass tower around me, hurrying to buses, cabs, and trains. I pulled my coat tight around me and waited at the crosswalk, watching the light, trying not to think. My mind drifted anyway, back to a long table, a mistletoe kiss, a ring on my finger, a man saying please on the side of a frozen lake. I lifted my eyes to the other side of the street and saw him. He stood there like the only still thing in a moving world, holding a black umbrella. The rain slid off it in a steady curtain. People flowed around him, but he did not move. His eyes were on me. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. I blinked hard. He was still there. The light changed. People stepped into the road. He did too. We walked toward each other, the traffic passing on either side, like we were inside some quiet tunnel. He stopped right in front of me and tilted the umbrella so it covered us both. The rest of the city faded to a blur of wet shapes and noise on the edges of our small circle. "What are you doing here?" I asked. My voice came out thin and shaky. He looked at me the way you look at something you lost and never thought you would see again. His face was bare, no cool mask, no CEO armor, just a man with every feeling he had tried to hide written across his eyes. "I made a mistake," he said. His voice was deep and rough. "A huge, life-changing mistake." He took a small step closer. I could see the raindrops clinging to his lashes, the tight line of his jaw, the way his hand trembled just a little on the umbrella handle. "I spent my whole life building walls," he said, "writing rules, making sure feelings could never get close enough to hurt me again. Then you walked into my office and ruined every plan I ever had." A soft, broken laugh left him. His eyes stayed on mine. "I followed the contract," he said. "Every line, every clause. I let you go because I was a coward who trusted a rule more than his own heart. It was the worst decision I have ever made." He took his hand from his coat pocket and opened it. The ring lay in his palm, wet with a few stray drops that had slipped past the umbrella. It looked smaller in the gray light, but somehow brighter too. A tiny circle of gold and promise. "I know what this ring was before," he said. "A prop, a lie, a thing I used to keep my life under control." His voice dropped lower. "I do not want that anymore." Quote. He held his hand out to me, rain whispering all around us. "I want it to mean something true," he said. "I want it to mean that I will spend the rest of my life making this right, that I will never treat you like something I can move or replace, that I will never walk away from you again, not ever." He did not drop to one knee. He did not speak some perfect prepared speech. He just stood there in the rain, holding out his heart in the shape of a ring. "Will you let me try?" he asked. "Will you come home with me, not as my assistant, not as my fake wife, but as the woman I love?" Tears blurred my vision, warm tears in the cold air. For a moment, all I could see was the pattern of my life. Always leaving, always being sent away, always being the one who had to start over somewhere new while everyone else stayed where they were. No one had ever turned around and come back for me. Until now. Slowly, I reached out. His eyes flinched like he was bracing for pain. I did not take the ring. I curled my fingers over his hand instead, closing it around the small band, holding his fists tight between both of mine. "I do not want the ring," I said softly. I saw the light start to die in his eyes. "I want the man holding it," I finished. Hope burst across his face like sunrise. The tightness in his jaw melted. His eyes shone in a way I had never seen before. Then I was in his arms. I threw myself against him and he caught me, holding me like he would never let go. His mouth found mine and the kiss was nothing like the one under the mistletoe. It was raw and shaking and full of everything we had held back. Pain, relief, love, home. The umbrella slipped from his hand and hit the sidewalk. Rain poured down on us, soaking our hair, our coats, our clothes. People walked around us, some staring, some smiling, some not caring at all. We did not care either. I pulled back just enough to breathe, my forehead resting against his. "Take me home, Finn," I whispered. The nickname slipped out without thought, like it had been waiting on my tongue for years. "Always," he said. His voice was steady now. "Always." 1 year later, I stood in a very different living room. The air smelled like fresh pine and gingerbread, not like polished wood and money. A fire crackled in a stone fireplace. The Christmas tree was a little crooked, decorated with mismatched ornaments we had collected together. It was not perfect. It was ours. I reached up to hang a star on a high branch and smiled when a firm hand slid over mine. "Careful, Mrs. Vale," he murmured in my ear, his chest pressed against my back. "We have precious cargo." I laughed and rested my free hand on my rounded stomach. 6 months earlier, on a warm beach with soft waves and only a few close people watching, we had said real vows. No contract. No escape clause. Just promises, spoken with full hearts and clear eyes. My aunt had cried through the whole thing. We had walked into the water after and let the ocean wash over our feet like a blessing. Now we were getting ready for our first Christmas in the little house we had bought together. Not a fortress. Not a glass tower. A home. A soft throat clearing made us turn. Eleanor Vale stood in the doorway, her hands holding a small, silk-wrapped package. She looked different in this light. Softer. The sharp edges I first met in that cold mansion had been smoothed by something real. "May I interrupt?" she asked. I smiled. "Never." She came closer and handed me the little bundle. "For you," she said. "Well, for the baby." I opened it carefully. Inside were the smallest clothes I had ever seen. A tiny cap and matching booties, hand-knit from faded yellow yarn. The stitches were neat, but the wool was worn with time, like it had been washed and held many times before. "That is what we brought Finian home in," she said. Her voice shook just a little. "From the hospital. I kept it all these years." She looked at me, eyes shining. "I would like you to have it now," she said. "For my grandchild." The weight of the gift was more than yarn and memory. It was trust. It was welcome. It was a door opening, not closing. My eyes filled with tears as I set the tiny clothes down and threw my arms around her. She hugged me back, holding on tight. This time it was not stiff or forced. A second later, strong arms wrapped around us both. Finn pulled us into one big hug, his chin resting on top of my head, his hand over my belly. I closed my eyes and let myself feel everything. The warmth, the safety, the love. Our story had started with a desperate deal on a lonely Christmas Eve. A fake ring. A rule against falling in love. A contract that said we would walk away when the act was done. But standing there in our warm, messy, happy living room with my husband and his mother and a tiny future kicking softly under my hand, I knew something for sure. Love had broken every rule. And thank God it did.
If you felt good in this story, stay with us, like, subscribe, and join me in the next one. Thank you.